Hello everyone, it's Elena and I'm back with another video, and today we will be reacting to the Feeling Blue Mental Health at Cambridge documentary, which, well, obviously is about mental health at Cambridge. Now, I'm somebody who's currently on a break from university for mental health reasons, and I'm a Cambridge student, so I have some insight of what it's like to deal with a mental health issue while you're at Cambridge. So yeah, I mean, I don't know everything about it, and I certainly don't know how it's handled at different colleges, since Cambridge is a collegiate university. So yeah, let's see what they're saying. Now, before we watch the documentary, we will take a look at their website, because they have a website where they have summarized some of their findings and questions that, you know, the documentary raised. So we'll first of all look at that, see what we're getting ourselves into, and then we'll watch the documentary. The documentary film positions itself as an emotive, experiential understanding of the mental health landscape at Cambridge University. Okay, and apparently it takes a more methodical and open-ended approach. Alright, and they have apparently refrained from making conclusions. So they are just going to give us the picture of what it's like, and we can then, you know, form our own opinion. Okay. And okay, they have all their findings and unanswered questions here. So basically, you know, if you don't have the time to watch the entire documentary, you can go here and just look at this. That's beautiful. You can actually just like download it. Like, that's really great. Because, you know, they make it easy to, you know, look at the findings, which I like and I appreciate. Okay, who made this though? Oh, okay. This is student-led. Alright. That is important. So it's student-led research, so we know it comes from the perspective of students in terms of, you know, like, how did they start planning this, you know, what were the questions that probably came to their mind. Alright, I think that's great, because I mean, it's probably about students' mental health. Maybe there's a bit about teachers' mental health or supervisors' mental health, I don't know. But I would guess it's probably mostly about students. Okay, and you can watch the film here, it's on YouTube, anybody can go and watch it. And yeah, that's what we're gonna do now.
You know, there's this great, I have it pinned up somewhere on my wall. This bit from Under the Volcano by Malcolm Lowry. It has this wonderful excerpt from it on being in Cambridge, sort of being almost sort of seasick from walking around on this shifting ship of a place that really puts you into this dizzying spiral if you're not incredibly careful and level-headed coming into it. I definitely did not come in incredibly careful and level-headed.
Same, dude. Just same, honestly. Also, who is this guy? Like, he sounds so cool, like that he just like has like poetry or prose about Cambridge on his wall. Wow, like he sounds pretty amazing. Like, I would love to like meet him and have a conversation with him, because he sounds really interesting. Okay, can I just say, so far the quality of the footage and of the editing has been really high. Like, I like it quite a lot. I wasn't sure, you know, what this was going to look like, because it says it's student-led, and I don't know how much time each of them spent on it, but this looks really, really impressive. Ouch. I guess those are the statistics that the university doesn't put on their website to brag about. Okay, I feel like this music makes the university's response sound really bad, because the music is so negative, and, you know, like, I don't know why they chose this music, because I think the university's response was absolutely valid and made a lot of sense, because the survey only asked people if they thought that they had suffered from depression, not were you diagnosed as clinically depressed. And those are two very, very different things, because a lot of people nowadays use the term I'm depressed for saying I'm sad today. It doesn't mean you are clinically depressed. Depression is an illness. So just asking people, oh, do you think you're depressed? No, that's not, you know, the right approach for measuring mental health. The other thing is, only 1,700 something undergraduates responded to the survey, but Cambridge has a lot more undergraduate students. Now, you could argue, okay, but you will never, you know, interview everybody for something like that. Sure, but how did they choose who responds to it? Is it just, oh, we have this survey, would you like to participate? Or did they actually look, okay, how many people are in treatment, how many that? Probably not. So I don't think the university's response was as bad as the music makes it sound.
As far as I'm aware, when people say situational or temporal depression, what they actually are referring to is what we now call adjustment disorder. It's a maladaptive reaction to an identifiable psychosocial stressor or multiple stressors that causes significant impairment in personal, family, social, educational, occupational, or other areas of functioning.
Okay, I think this segment is actually really important because I was just saying, oh, you know, some people say I'm depressed but they're not clinically depressed, and I didn't know that something like adjustment disorder exists, which, you know, might be what some people might be going through when they say I'm depressed and they, you know, have like temporary symptoms of depression. I don't know, I thought this was just really interesting because I had no idea it exists. So yeah, I think this is a really informative part which sheds light on something that is probably less well known than other mental illnesses like anxiety or depression.
Success at Cambridge would be to get the best grade you could possibly get. You know, that is, you know, if you've come in and you've got a poor average 2-1 for instance, but you know deep down you could have got first, no one call that success. You've let yourself down.
What? Can we hear that clip again?
No one call that success. You've let yourself down.
Okay, I disagree with this so much because your success at university doesn't have to be about the grades you get. Okay, for some people, success at university might just be graduating. Okay, some people go through stuff during the time at university, and honestly sometimes the only thing that they can manage at that point in time is, you know, to just somehow get through it. Other people go to university not for graduating with the best grades, but maybe for learning, but also for, you know, continuing to row and putting a lot of energy into that. Other people focus on volunteering or whatever, and I think it's absolutely valid. If grades matter a lot to you, it's also absolutely valid if you spend all your time on that, but please don't, you know, waste your time in university by only focusing on getting the best grade possible, because at the end of the day, not everybody can graduate with a start first class degree.
I remember being told by an academic that if you want to get a first or do well in your exams, then you can't row.
I know that this issue is real because I know quite a few of my friends had academics tell them something similar, and in all honesty I don't know why academics think that, you know, that does anything good, because you do need some downtime. So if you're doing extracurriculars and someone's trying to shame you for it, don't let them, you know, talk you out of doing any extracurriculars at all, because you need some downtime. You need to do something that isn't about your degree.
A particular competitive, intense environment.
8-week periods of chronic stress and anxiety and worries.
The shortness of the
Terms. Very short terms.
Horrible!
I think we all just heard this like music which was like a pulse, and then, you know, all these like short clips cut together, and then it just explodes in this horrible. I don't think that is a way of editing if you don't draw any conclusions. They may not tell you, oh, this is the conclusion we draw, but the editing clearly draws some conclusions and paints a very clear picture of the situation in your head. So would I say that they are really not drawing any conclusions? Not really. I think the editing does tell you what they think. They may not have spelled it out for you, but they didn't have to.
How good your mental health is isn't necessarily how good your college is or how good your subject is, but how good is the person who's willing to vouch for you.
I think he makes a really important point, because as somebody who intimated herself, I can tell you that there's a very small circle of people who you can talk to about this and who will then eventually help you intimate or, you know, get some support, whatever. And it's really hard to find someone outside that circle who could vouch for you. So because normally you just talk to your tutor who's responsible for, you know, your personal well-being. So that's, you know, an obvious choice. Sometimes the director of studies, because if you do have a mental health condition, you probably want to tell them so that they know it might affect your academics, and potentially your college knows, or a counsellor. But the two people who really matter are your tutor and your director of studies. And when it comes to an intermission, actually only your tutor really matters, because your tutor is the person who writes a letter to the committee which decides whether you should be granted an intermission. And, you know, your tutor can write whatever in that letter. You don't get to see that letter. You don't get to write anything to the committee. It's just your tutor. So if your tutor wouldn't take mental health issues seriously, you'd have a really big problem here if you needed an intermission. Now, I don't know how tutors get prepared by university for situations like this, so I don't want to say that there are any tutors who don't care about mental health. I know that my tutor was really great in dealing with my issue. She was super supportive. So I can only tell you that my experience was incredibly positive, but I do agree that you have a very small circle of people that can help you, and you really depend on the fact that they are supportive, and if they're not, it can be really hard to find someone else you could talk to.
Even meeting with my tutor now, and he'll say, well, you know, I don't know what you expect me to do, or I go to him with something that I've heard from the Student Advice Service and the Disability Resource Center. They say, you know, you should apply for an exam warning. And I say, okay, I'll apply for an exam warning. And I go and ask my tutor if I can apply for an exam warning. And he says, well, we don't do those anymore. And I say, okay, well, this list of people has told me that you do these still, and that it's a good idea to have one, given, you know, my circumstance, and that is what I'm trying to do now. And he said, well, I don't know if they know what they're talking about.
I'm really sorry that he, you know, goes through all the right steps to get support, and then somebody just tells him, no, we don't do that anymore. Every person who does something like that and then gets told, no, you know, we don't have that support anymore, whatever, is one person too many. And I just want to make that really clear. But I also do want to say that this is not the only way it can go if you're dealing with mental health issues at Cambridge. My experience was really the opposite of what he just described. My tutor, my director of studies, and my college nurse were super supportive. They were always emailing me, hey, here's another resource, and why don't we meet next week, and whatever. And they made sure that, you know, I knew I had all the support and where I could get more support if I needed it. So I just want to let you know that if you're someone who is struggling with mental health issues and you're thinking whether Cambridge could be a good fit for you, it can go really different than that. And I'm really sorry that this happened to this guy. And as I said, every person who this happens to is one too many, and the university needs to improve that. But I just want to let you know, this is not the only way it can go if you have a mental health issue.
To go into those situations and to sort of have to grovel almost and beg for support, or to go through this really lengthy process of documentation where you're sort of guilty until proven innocent, that doesn't contribute to anything feeling any better.
Oh, can I just give this guy a hug? Like, I keep like listening to him and I'm just like, oh, I feel really sorry for you. And I liked him since he was introduced in the documentary, so yeah, I just want to give him a big hug.
Fall off the conveyor belt and you have no idea what to do. What happens to your funding? What happens to your student loan? What happens to your room? What happens to your exam? Like, no one says anything about that.
Okay, so I'm not saying that his experience isn't true, but I do have to say, this is really not how it went for me. When I intermitted, the college did tell me all of these things. So, you know, when I was about to make the decision of whether to intermit or not, I said, well, you know, I'm really concerned because I really need my bursary and I really need my scholarship. So the college looked into that and then they got back to me about it. So, you know, it can go really different. And I mean, I don't know, you know, how the process was for him, and I'm not trying to say that, you know, anything about that isn't true. But in all honesty, the college dealt really different with me, and I think I had more of an overload of information almost rather than not enough information. So yeah, don't be too worried about that. And if there's anything that they aren't telling you that you need to know, you can ask them. You can email them anytime, even after you've intermitted. It's not like they're not going to reply to you. You're not totally gone. Even now, I'm in touch with my director of studies. So, no, you're not totally just gone. At least I wouldn't say so.
And I spent a lot of time frightened to go back into college, like just as members of the public are allowed to visit, for example. But I felt really intimidated from going back.
Actually, you're not supposed to come back into college while you're on intermission, and there is a guidance document which says exactly that, and it's sent to everybody who's intermitting. And if you do want to come back, you can ask for permission and then you can come back.
But equally, we have to be realistic about the amount of pressure that we're under in terms of time and resource.
I do not like this editing. You know, he just said, oh, you know, we have to remember we're in a constraint in terms of resources. And then, you know, they pull out this graph and they're like, oh, but have you seen the billions of pounds in your endowment? Yes, the university does have billions of pounds in their endowment. And guess what? They cannot just go ahead, take these billions and spend them. That would be a really, really bad idea. So instead, they take these billions of pounds and they invest them so that they have more money. And that they also have money 100 years down the road and 500 years down the road. The university has to plan ahead. So I think it's really, really unfair to just, take all the money that they theoretically have in terms of assets, but that they actually can't spend. So if you want to make a more honest approach, why don't you actually look into the university's financing plans and look at how much the university and the colleges allow themselves to spend each year. And then remember, they don't just have to pay for mental health, they also have to pay for things like teaching, because it's a university. They also have to maintain all their buildings, pay the staff, etc, etc, etc. There's a lot of expenses that a university has, and even though Cambridge theoretically has a lot of money, they also have a lot of expenses. So don't just pull up a graph and be like, oh, they have this £1 billion endowment. It's not as easy as that, and I don't think that this editing was very fair towards the university.
University counselling service is excellent, but resourcing is always a problem.
We're very lucky to be well resourced as we are here.
People from the university, why don't you email each other before you give these interviews? Like, why don't you ask each other, okay, so what is the narrative that, we want to share with the public? You can either say, we are very well resourced at the counselling service, or you can say, resourcing is an issue here. Which one of the two is it going to be?
I don't want my students to intermit, partly because I will lose money if they do. My life becomes more financially unstable if I make that kind of recommendation. That's a lot of money to lose, right? And so you obviously don't want your students to intermit.
I don't know how I feel about this clip. On the one hand, okay, he's being honest, that's good, I guess. And I understand, he's a teacher, he needs to finance his living, he needs to eat, and food costs money. I get that. But at the same time, you would want your students' mental health to suffer for that. And I guess in a way, my compassion for him is limited by the fact that he signed a contract with the university. And somewhere in that contract, it will have said that, if you don't teach that student, we don't pay you for that student. And if you've done your research on your employer, you will know that intermission is an option for students. And I mean, if you're a teacher, you'd probably want your students to be healthy, I guess, hopefully. That's something that I would consider a very positive quality of a teacher. So yeah, I understand he, needs money as well. But at the same time, I don't know, he knew about that risk when he took that job, didn't he? I'm not, saying he's doing a terrible thing here by saying that. He's at least being honest. But I think it also says a lot that he wasn't willing to say that on camera with his face and name there. So he does know that there's something that's somewhat wrong about this. But I also get it, he needs to earn his money as well.
One of my friends, his supervisor, deliberately arranges supervision on Saturdays to stop people doing extracurricular activities.
What? Does this supervisor have a life? Because it really doesn't sound like it. Okay guys, we made it through the documentary. So yeah, it's been an interesting 54 minutes of my life. Because yeah, that's how long this documentary is. So yeah, would I recommend this documentary now after spending 54 minutes of my life on it? I'm not sure. I would definitely recommend their website. And I think it's great, basically they summarized everything that they found there. So, you can basically get the information that you could get in 54 minutes from 5 to 10 minutes of reading. So yeah, definitely would recommend the website. I'm going to link it in the info box below, and you can also watch the entire documentary there. But would I recommend the documentary? If you're interested in learning more about it, yeah, probably. But at the same time, I would recommend watching it with a bit of a critical eye, I guess, because the people that they chose to be in this documentary and the way they edited some things were, in my opinion, drawing conclusions. Now they say they don't draw conclusions, but I felt like they were at some stages. Just when you cut from one scene to the next and what are you cutting to, what music are you using, I do think there were some conclusions that were being drawn. Now they do say it's emotive, so yeah, probably that's why, but I do think that their emotive editing draws conclusions. That's just my take on it. And so yeah, I think, you know, they could have portrayed this a bit differently if they had also chosen more people with positive experiences of mental health in Cambridge, because there are people who have positive experiences with how the university helps them with their mental health issue, and I can say that because I am one of them. But I didn't really see a lot of that. Now, of course, if you're doing a documentary, you do, you know, want to raise awareness of the issue and not show where it's going well, I guess. But I think if you want to paint a more honest picture, that should have been in there as well. So yeah, I would definitely recommend the website. It's linked in the info box below, and if you're interested in then, you know, spending 54 minutes of your life on watching that, then go for it. So yeah, that's it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you guys have a different take on the documentary, please let me know in the comments below, or you can also send me a message through the contact section of my blog, which is linked in the info box below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a nice day. Bye!